Welcome to Education Insight. I'm Lacey Kendall. Today we're taking a look at a unique type of college. While the standard curriculum is offered and any student is welcome, most classes focus on the student's mind, body, and spirit. Degrees are offered in ecology, community health, languages, and Indigenous studies. I'm talking about accredited tribal colleges, which are spread across the U.S. However, they don't exist in California, despite the fact that our state is home to over 100 tribes. But experts from Sacramento to San Diego believe that is about to change, as one local college, appropriately named the California Indigenous Nations College in Palm Desert, is very close to receiving accreditation and becoming our first. Leading that charge and joining us by phone is the president and CEO of that college, Celeste R. Townsend. President Townsend, thanks so much for taking our call today.
Pesha Awamoa, Lacey. Good morning, Lacey. Thank you. This is such a great opportunity for California Indian Nations College to join you on this call.
Being so close to this accreditation and becoming California's first tribal college, fingers crossed, how does that feel? It must be a very exhilarating moment for you and everybody working at the college.
It's empowering, it's monumental, it's historical, emotional for a lot of us. It's just the most amazing feeling.
What inspired the creation of the California Indian Nations College? Where did all this begin? And how do you see it shaping the future of Native education here in California?
I'm glad you asked that question because I think this is an institution that has been a long time coming and needed for American Indian students. One of the concerns we had, there was a meeting that took place in 2015 led by our founder, Teresa Mike. At this table was approximately 20 to 35 Native, American Indian, Indigenous professionals who were talking about the needs. What could we do to help our community? The two main focuses were education and healthcare. And while healthcare is a big hurdle, building a hospital would take so much more, but a lot of us had influential positions in education. At the time, I was working for UCR, and within 3 months, she's nudging me to take on these meetings and help her create it. I think one of the biggest things is how we started with everybody has a story to tell. Everybody had a story of challenges, whether it was grade school, middle school, high school. There was also that challenge of feeling comfortable to go on to pursue a degree. And with that, I resonated my own experience of being a straight A student in high school, not being requested or asked to take SATs, ACTs, even college prep courses. So I think with that, I was ignored or pushed aside or not valued enough to go in, and being one of the only Native students on campus that I knew of that was shared, I was at a predominantly white, influential high school, and yet to transition into a college when my friends are going away to universities was very, it was an individual task. I didn't know how to navigate the systems, the whole thing of visiting with counselors. There's so many things you have to think of that you just don't know. And if your family doesn't have the experience, you're completely alone. So I think for me, I resonated with everybody's challenges who sat at the table. And it just really hit home because at the time I was working at UC Riverside, but just prior to that, I had worked at Sherman Indian High School, which is one of 4 off-reservation boarding schools in the United States. Meeting with students, working with students, working with the staff and the different structures that I took away from me and found nurturing because of my identity, because of the unknown challenges that I had. I saw that California Indian Nations College could address some of those. And even still, 2 years ago, I started my own doctoral program at UC San Diego. And my goal was to really find out why less than 1% of American Indians compared to the United States population receive or attain a degree. And while the social injustice and social justice programs and initiatives are going on, my people still remain at less than 1%. I've gone as far back as the 70s. We have never broken that 1%. And so that to me says so much when I look at my own family, my sister who is 1 year older, my brother who's 3 years younger, and my little sister who is 12 years younger. We all have a master's degree and higher. So it really put a desire in my heart to find out how to help my people to get to that level. And so we're uncovering intergenerational trauma, systematic biases, and systematic stereotypical assumptions that we get into at CIN College and learn to really work with our students. Every student has a story, and I think that's where we really hone into our mission, that we provide personalized services.
Yeah. I looked at the website and at the curriculum of courses that you have, and it really feels like your curriculum is addressing those disparities. So for our listeners, how does the curriculum integrate Indigenous knowledge and history and values? And how do you balance that with mainstream academic standards?
Glad you asked that. I think a lot of it comes from not just the course development, but understanding the values of Native people. We have a very social, familial value system, whereas conventional systems are very individualized, very capitalistic. And so we're trying to show the students that it's okay to have a little bit of that too. But remember, we're here for the community. We're here for the family. And I think that's the structure that we've embraced at our college, is making sure that, hey, when you come to class, if you don't have a babysitter, it's okay for you to bring your child, no matter how young or how old, because they have that first seat. And that's something that's in the traditional ways, is that the kids are sat up front so that they learn and they have the best seat in the house to learn. Who better than they can learn the value of education than watching mom, dad, grandma, grandpa attending class? So that's one of them. But also, just as far as the curriculum, we make sure we've added Native or American Indigenous breadth requirements.
Yeah.
So it's not just taking the basic general eds. We have that breadth requirement to keep within the tradition. We know there's over 570 tribes in the United States. We know there's over 110 in California alone, with approximately 60 or more looking for federally recognition or state recognition. So there's a huge Native population in California. And we just want to remind everybody that each tribe has different cultures and values, and every culture and value, whether it's Native, non-Native, any other ethnicity, is highly valued and included and welcomed.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm wondering, is it difficult to teach Indigenous culture when your students come from the many different local regional tribes that we have here in our region, and each is so unique?
I'm glad you asked that too, because this is something that I'm learning even from, books that I'm reading, Indigenous methodologies and decolonizing methodologies who are written by Native scholars. And I think that's something we all come to learn. We're not just the researcher. We're not the one guiding the pen. We're learning from those around us. And I think that's very traditional as well. We learn from each other. It's not this hierarchical structure. It's, yes, we're going to help guide, but we learn from each other. And I think that's the beauty of our school. We right now represent over 90 tribes. And while we are on the Cahuilla land and we give honor and recognize to the initial caretakers and inhabitants of the land, we also know that there's others coming and we want to embrace everything. So because of the restrictions and the guidelines that we have to have for the community college system, we also know we can integrate activities, workshops, guest speakers those are the scholars of the traditional ways, and who better to learn from and embrace it and share it and celebrate it.
So how do you plan to foster that sense of cultural pride and identity that you're talking about among students while preparing them for the global workforce?
Right. And I think right there you hit it, is with the community. It's community engagement, community awareness, community partnerships, whether it's local and or tribal communities. You have the tribal communities that some are prolific in gaming and others are prolific in the flora and fauna, the agriculture, and some are coming into the STEM programs. And that's something we want to do, is that we want to make sure that we take it from a Native perspective, but bring it to where it comes for both worlds, whether it's traditional or non-traditional, Native, non-Native. And I think that's something that we are really working on strengthening, and that comes with our strengthening our partnerships with the tribes and having the tribes believe in the college. In the past, being that it is the first in over almost 30 years of having a tribal college, there's a sense of mistrust that needs to be reestablished. But I think because they're graduates and they're seeing our graduates go and make it in this world today, they're so impressed with us. And I think now it's time for them to jump on board, partner with us, and realize that this is the tribal college to work with to get these things done and keep our tradition.
If you just joined us, you're listening to Education Insight. I'm Lacey Kendall. We're speaking with President Celeste Townsend of the California Indian Nations College in Palm Desert. So, President Townsend, how do you see this college contributing to the broader movement for Indigenous rights and sovereignty?
I think it's said in our tagline, we aim to educate, strengthen, and empower each individual to take it back to their communities, whether local or tribal. And I think that's huge, is we want to not just educate them, but we want to strengthen their knowledge, strengthen their skills, strengthen them with resources, and empower them to use those and put them to the test and put them to experiences. Right now I have two that are just coming off the top of my head. One who's one of my first graduates, she already received her doctorate from UC Riverside in anthropology, and we just hired her as our first full-time faculty member. She wants to give back to her community. I just received a letter from another student who graduated last year or the year before, and she received an internship with Honorable Sunshine Sykes, who is a federally appointed judge by the Biden administration. She just told me she completed her year of internship, and the experience and the knowledge that she gained, she just has so much to give back. So I asked her to come and speak. So for us, we're also integrating, we've started last year our first Native American or American Indian Education Summit, where we bring in a representative from the White House, particularly under the tribal colleges and universities, as well as state officials, local government officials, and we bring them in to see what our students are doing so that they become aware of what our students are learning and gaining as far as skills. And then the next day we have breakout sessions where we bring in the community and other schools who want to learn. How do you become tribally or traditionally, culturally responsive to help those students? We see so much bullying and lack of understanding in schools, whether it's elementary, middle, high, and post-secondary institutions. We're just trying to bring that awareness, bring the learning, but also serve as a resource.
Our conversation with President Celeste R. Townsend of the California Indian Nations College continues in just a moment. This is Education Insight. Welcome back to Education Insight. Today we're talking about the California Indian Nations College in Palm Desert, which is in the midst of the accreditation process. And while Indian Nation colleges have existed in the U.S. since 1966, and even though this state has over 100 recognized tribes, a lot of experts are saying they expect this to become California's first accredited tribal nations college. We're joined on the phone by President Celeste Townsend. A little earlier, you mentioned some of the struggles that you faced yourself when you were younger and difficulties that were put on you. So I'm wondering, how do you plan to support students' mental health at the college and their well-being, particularly considering the experiences you've had and also the historical trauma that many Native communities have had to face?
Well, for that too, because of mine being raised in a predominantly white neighborhood, I had a different way of learning and how to cope and deal with it, and didn't realize how long it took to surface. And I think because we find so many students that do have these, I don't want to call them traumas, but they are. They're these little hiccups that have caused us to shut down a little. I think because of our talking circles that we have with Dr. Magical, who's a psychologist, and then we also have our elder in residence, Mr. Kim Marcus, who is a holy man in the area. Having that type of support to gain that balance within, the comfort within, and realize, you know what, I'm really not that different. Embrace your identity. Be proud of your identity. I think that was huge for me, knowing that my voice matters and can help somebody else. I think a lot of our students find that. With the challenges that they've had, their mindfulness with this guidance that it's okay to get through it. It's okay that you're a survivor through these challenges. Share it. When they start sharing it and helping others, it builds a strength, not just in themselves, but with the community.
You mentioned building partnerships with tribal governments and tribal leaders. But are you working to develop new partnerships with educational institutions in our region and private sectors that might enhance opportunities that the students can enjoy?
Absolutely. We've been working very close with College of the Desert. Of course, they're the ones that house the area where we offer the courses. So our course offering is there at College of the Desert in Palm Springs. The University of California, Riverside has been amazing since day one, and they have provided us office space. That's where we initially started, but we outgrew that office space and had to, thank goodness for College of the Desert, who said, come use this underutilized location for your classes. Well, now with our growth, when we had 40 students and now we have over 160, we've outgrown both, and we're using both. So that's our challenge right now, is looking for a home. But it's a great challenge. We also have, if you look at our board of trustees, we have educators from different institutions there, and we have partnerships with those. Palomar College, we have their professor helping to teach another language for us, another traditional language. We also have a gentleman's handshake with Cal Poly Pomona, with California State San Marcos. Our students have gone to those campuses to go see and have those direct pathways. We also have included University of Redlands. California State San Bernardino is a huge partner with us. As a matter of fact, our Ed Summit that's taking place in the spring in March 7th and 8th, they're the partnering host. We also have a partnership with Kumeyaay Community College, who is the first tribal college to branch away from DQ University, who closed its doors back in 2003. However, Kumeyaay doesn't have the funding, and they've been operating under Cuyamaca College, another tribal college that's been hidden. So we work with Kumeyaay Community College. Their president, Dr. Stan Rodriguez, is one of the most amazing professors of traditional language and cultural preservation with artifacts. So there are many others. Are there written MOUs, MOAs? No. We'll work on them. But I think the partnerships we have and the open doors that we have with each other, it's reciprocated.
Like so many other people, I'm sure, I have read and seen on the news so many stories that are just heartbreaking about native languages lost in the United States. So, what role will traditional language and cultural practices play in the student experience at California Indian Nations College? And how do you plan to ensure the preservation of those languages?
I, too, am still learning my language. It's something that I never knew as a kid. I remember hearing my grandmother and great-grandmother talking, and my brother and sister and I would just laugh, chuckling at how cute it sounded. It was just so cool to hear it. And now that deep desire wanting to learn, and I think, how many others want to learn? What do we do? There's so many different languages. And like I said, when I talk about the Kumeyaay, which is Dr. Rodriguez's tribe, there's 12 different nations within the Kumeyaay. So there's so many different languages, so many different dialects. I think what we want to do right now, of course, because we are on the land of the Cahuilla, we are and we have honored and recognized that that's the language we start off with. But there's so many other tribes that are represented on our campus that we want to embrace them all. As you know, the systemic requirements create barriers because our teachers of our language are our grandparents, great-grandparents. They're the ones that may not have a degree to teach, but they're the ones who know. Who better to correct us and teach us than that? So that's where we're integrating the workshops. Now, in a workshop, you think, okay, it's no big deal. It's a workshop. It's just something. But for us, it's huge. When you can bring in an elder who can teach you and integrate practices that embrace true language immersion, not through a class, or being taught in a traditional way. We're being taught under the stars, under the sky. Of course, within the four walls that we generally don't do traditionally. But having an elder come and give instruction, even if it is just, labeling the clock and the whiteboard and the computer with traditional language is so much more than not having anything at all. Is it going to be a class? You know what? It probably will in years when I'm not here, which would be amazing. But to bring it back, whether it's an activity or a workshop, says so much more because you don't see that happening. And like I said, 110 tribes in California, that's a minimum dialects that we can offer in our college.
Yeah. Final question for you. So when you get home from work after all of this impressive building that you and your team and local tribes have put into creating this soon to be accredited college, when you get home in the evening and you're sitting in your easy chair, just pondering your day and your work, President Townsend, what do you imagine for the future growth and development of this college?
Deep, rich question. You just brought emotions to me. I think allowing students to learn in a safe environment where they don't hide from their identity. Each time I speak, whether it's at graduation, at our education summit, at our gala, I ask the students in the audience, who's going to come and take my job? One of you can come and take my job. And I think that's something I've always believed is that we can do anything and everything if we truly want to. But you have to, as a student, really see yourself doing it. Do you have the passion for it? Because this isn't a job for me. It's not a career. It's my way of life. And I think that's why it just comes so naturally, so organically. What I see is a campus that truly embraces traditional ways, learning outside, not in four walls, learning from elders, learning so many different cultures. We're in this multicultural environment, but even multi-tribal environments. I think celebrating the beauties and the colors of everybody. Wow, I see beauty. I see acceptance. I see a sense of belonging. I see respect, which has been missing for many years. truly embracing our days with gratitude. I think I see that missing a lot now in our society, is being thankful for everything we have, and how we, welcome and start each day is with gratitude. Something so simple, but yet has so much meaning. I could go on, but
Yeah.
I think that's
Celeste R. Townsend, the president and CEO of the California Indian Nations College in Palm Desert. They are in the midst of accreditation, and it should be known that around the state, folks in education are expecting this to become California's very first accredited tribal college. President Townsend, thank you so much for joining us here on Education Insight today. We appreciate you.
Pisha. Mo. Thank you. Thank you all.
American kids who are 9 years old right now spent their 5th and 6th year of life at home with their family during the pandemic lockdowns. But those 2 years are the optimal time in brain development for kids to learn rudimentary social skills and how to regulate your emotions. But now, those 380,000 9-year-olds here in California are having a very tough time making friends and adapting to being in a classroom, dealing with anxiety, and handling their own emotions. We're taking a look at our 9-year-old kiddos and how we can help them overcome those struggles with the chief of operations at a large counseling practice in Riverside. It's all on the next Education Insight. Until then, I'm Lacey Kendall. Have a great week.
Education Insight is produced in partnership with KVCR San Bernardino.
Our executive producer is Jacob Poor.
And our production engineer is Tyler Veazey.
And Lacey Kendall is your host. Support is provided by College Futures Foundation.
Some technical assistance provided by the College of Arts and Letters at Cal State San Bernardino.
Growing Inland Achievement. Working together for inland education and economic success.
Join us again next week for Education Insight.